When, at the bodily age of 11 or 12, I was at a party with other children, there occurred an instance of concurrent dual consciousness. We were romping around like any other young animal, and suddenly, in the midst of the game, I experienced myself as being also outside it. I continued to play, but was apart from it. What happened was a double consciousness. I saw subjectively my body and the other players and the game progressing, but concurrently, I also saw the actors objectively, as if they were being driven by a force of which they thought themselves masters. I saw them as the egos known by name and form as they thought they were, and also vibrationally as they really were. And the thoughts came to me, what are we all doing? We are being used by what? What is the meaning of it all? Although my soul was no longer in the game, part of me continued to play and to talk quite ordinarily, though in a queer, wistful mood, as if I was on automatic. Soon, one of the boys seemed to notice me psychically. He was a year my junior, and I'm sure we shared in this sea change. A wordless look and a later question from him made me certain we were both momentarily open and doubly aware. In my 14th year, the world around and within crashed. The farm, my outside world, was sold to and desecrated by strangers, and from that time on I felt uprooted, or perhaps more deeply at home within. I discovered both my wings and my roots. Later on, although I loved my various homes, I was able to make myself at home everywhere. It was easy for me to be a traveler as I was unattached to a special place or to a particular home. Life was a pilgrimage. I felt that I, like a snail, brought along with me my real home, my shell or shield of silence. Also at 14, adolescence began to play havoc with true memory, and the exoteric structure of religious forms and dogmas that were taught to me and imposed upon me unraveled, and all was a tangle, a chaos. Even in this chaos of consciousness, there were vivid gleams and a calm recollection of true memory. The awareness of this light lessened the confusion. From the age of 7 till 14, ego consciousness was developed as a kind of self-defense, or as a reflection of the mentality and the ego desires of the humans around me. Though it had strong and subtle roots within, ego was also provoked, fostered, and developed by much tuning in and listening to the rhythms and vibrations of fellow pilgrims. The ego was invoked as a reflex in self-defense, but in the same process it was also humbled, crucified, and crushed. Many a time it crumbled, and these were valuable experiences. It was exactly what the illusory ego, strutting around in its bloated power complexes and Shakti antics and conceit of agency, needed to have happen. After being humbled, crucified, and crushed many a time, it died naturally. Death is the secret of ego-free living. There is no wooden cross except as a symbol. The cross of ego life suffices until we remain on it long enough to regain our psychic wholeness. This implies the dissolving of ego. Spiritual suffering is a contradiction in term symbols, just as is assertive culture. There is nothing spiritual about suffering, and the spirit cannot suffer. It is our identification with the illusory ego and with the mere reflection, which we call mind, which must be crushed, expunged, and outgrown. The whole does not assert. Due to my passive receptivity and negative capability, that is, the trusting in living the unknown through pure intuition, both marvelous tools, but each also having a shadow side that made me seem weak. But there was a steady succession of smaller ego crucifixions as I made contact with people during childhood. But wounds, lacerations, and repressions were often healed in the concurrent flow of solitude in which lived Dr. Harmony and Sri Silence. There, as the bruised ego ceased to will and assert, thoughts could rest and hurts could heal. All thoughts are an extroverted activity of the mind, and the mind is extroverted until it reflects the self purely. Once you can still your thoughts, they will no longer blur true memory of one's real nature. Transcend ego consciousness and be self-aware. Later on, there were bigger crucifixions that were not easy, but mercifully they were brief. Dying also became more easy once it was a habit. After an adolescent love was thwarted, the realization came clearly and fairly lastingly that it is our love which makes us rich. The light that I loved in my beloved was like light shining forth from a lantern. I saw that it was the light that I loved and not the lantern. The light of the beloved might seem to no longer be shining, but having once seen it, I realized that the light would be there forever. I came to see that the essence of love is not reciprocal reward, nor requital, not touch, gratification, possessive joys, nor ego fulfillment, but just this steady seeing and contemplation of the ever-living beauty that is, and which is ours, to the degree to which we can appreciate that which is deepest in ourself. The beauty that we see around us is really only within our own psyche. That which recognizes itself is within. Outside friends would console and commiserate, saying, "It is painful, but it will pass. We have been through it and can sympathize with you. Cheer up. There are still as many good fish in the sea as ever came out of it." And so the ego play could go on glibly, and the same grievances, the same complications, and the same ego pity recur. What is better than gushing sympathy as we fussily attempt to bandage the wounds of our fellow pilgrim is assisting them to help themselves. By our example, we can teach them to look within for the cause of their trouble and grievances. How we fuss and gush in our grievance complexes, how we analyze and retell our symptoms. Our psychic diseases are often clearly reflected in the diseases of our physical, emotional, and mental tools. But symptoms are mistaken for the cause. Within ourselves is the source of the healing of nations, and also within is the healing or acceptance of our physical, emotional, and mental diseases. Rather than lean on the love and advice of other fellow pilgrims, see if you can take your hurts and difficulties within. Let the silence solve and heal and clarify. Who knows better than yourself the real cause and the real cure? Within, we may realize the meaning of our pains and our diseases. While all fellow pilgrims usually do is to try to heal the symptoms and to console the ego. Such sympathy and kindness may prevent us from learning the lesson that could cure us.